For years, I've been trying to find the perfect way to simulate the film look in my photos. I have done everything from make my own presets to buy entire cameras just dedicated to this purpose. And you might be saying, Caleb, why don't you just shoot actual film? And to you, I would say, great idea, but shush. Nobody asked you. I want to find the perfect way to blend the film look with the convenience of digital, and this latest find is definitely one of my favorites. Dehancer is a plugin for Lightroom and Photoshop that can seemingly turn any photo into a film photo, and one of my favorite aspects of this is that you can tweak and customize every setting, whereas with a preset, you're kind of just slapping it on and it may or may not work. They also make a video plugin, which I have covered in a previous video, and also an app which has a surprising amount of features. There's almost every feature from the desktop version in the app, and it's kind of incredible. Before we jump into it, I just want to say that Dehancer did not ask me to make this video. I actually reached out to them to try out their software, and the only thing that they asked of me is to give them an honest review, and that's what I'm gonna do. I figured that the best way that I could show you Dehancer is just to take you along with me as I edit a couple of photos. So jumping into Lightroom here, this is the first photo that we will be taking a look at. And the first thing that I like to do is actually stay in Lightroom, and I will make any white balance and crop adjustments here before we bring it into Dehancer. So I will do that here. Let's grab our little eyedropper, and then we'll just straighten out these lines. All right, so now once we want to bring it into Dehancer, we are going to right click on our photo and go up to Edit In, and we should see Edit in Dehancer Lightroom plugin. So we're gonna click that. We're going to edit copy with Lightroom adjustments, and this will open up the Dehancer program. So over here on our left, we have all of the different film stocks that we can emulate, which is super cool. And then over on the right, we have all of the tweaks that we can do to that film stock and all of the different aspects. And then obviously at the bottom, we have a giant histogram. So let's find a film stock that looks good with this photo. Kodak Gold 200 or a Portra would look fantastic here. First of all, if you're clicking on things and you don't see anything show up, it's probably because it's not selected. Like we have film profile up here at the top, but it's not activated. So we have to turn that on, and then it will apply that. And then now we can click around and pick all of the different film stocks. So here we are. We have the Kodak Portra 400. I like it. I don't love it. Kodak Gold looks really good, actually. I do like Kodak Gold, nice and subtle. And we can tweak all of these later, so it doesn't need to be perfect right out the gate. Let's do Kodak Gold 200, I'm liking that. All right, and then over here, jumping into the tweaks that we can do. Source, to start with, we can do exposure compensation. We can bring it up, bring it down. One thing to note that I am not a fan of this software, I don't know if I just have my settings wrong, but unlike Lightroom, I can't just hit Command Z and undo what I did. It doesn't work, so I have to come up here to the undo button every time that I make an adjustment that I don't like, which is often for me. I might want to make this a little warmer with the temperature compensation. That's fine, perfect. Exposure is pretty good. We're gonna recover a lot of those highlights in a later section here. Film developer, turn that on. Bring the contrast up, bring the contrast down. I actually might bring the contrast down just a bit. It's looking a little too punchy. Gamma correction, bring it up just a smidge like that. Color separation is fine. Color boost is basically just a saturation gain. If we crank it all the way up like regular Lightroom, it looks terrible. But I think maybe just a bit more, just a tiny bit of pop to it. Yeah, like an 8. It really doesn't need much at all. That's fine, film developer is good. Film compression, moving in, this is where we can recover a lot of those highlights. Even just clicking it on You can see down on the histogram recovers a lot of those highlights. Nothing in this photo was blown out when I shot it, so we should be able to recover everything. And as you can see, it seems like we can. White point down a little bit, tonal range, about 26, I like that. Expand here, we have our black point and our white point, so we can either raise or lower the contrast. I think I'm actually going to lower the contrast just a little bit. Print is our next section, which is very cool. You can simulate the how the film was printed. Didn't even know this was a thing until I started messing around with all the Dehancer programs. What if we do log film, it's gonna be super flat. Linear is kind of how we had it. Let's go down to the Fujifilm one. That looks cool. And Kodak one. The Kodak one looks really cool. I do like the glossy paper though. We're gonna have it on the Kodak 2383 print film. Down to color head, this is one of my favorite sections. This is where you can get really creative with your photo. Turn this on, we can add yellow or blue to our image, we can add magenta and green, we can add cyan and, or red, and you can mix and match those sliders to create some wacky effects and some really cool looks. As well as in the bottom section, there is shadows, midtones, and highlights, and we can add either coolness or warmth into either of those sections and really create some unique looks here. So let's see how this looks if we just mess around and drag them around. I might add, it already has quite a bit of yellow to this image, so I might leave that one alone a little bit because I like the warmth, but we might add some warmth later with one of these other sliders. Just a tiny bit of magenta, cyan, just down a little bit goes a long way with these sliders. I think I'm gonna add some warmth into those shadows. So I really want this to feel like a nice, like summery image. Add a little bit of warmth into the midtones as well. And this, we are going to leave the highlights alone. I like how the highlights are as they are. Moving down to film grain, this is where we can add film grain, as you know. Click that on, and right out of the gate, looks pretty good. We have a bunch of different sliders that we can mess around with. We can actually change it from the film type from negative to positive, which is pretty cool. I like that. Just a bit more. We're not gonna go crazy with it like that, but that looks fine. I like that. A little bit of film grain. Here we can add different amounts of grain to the shadows, midtones, and highlights. We can really tweak the look. Perfect, I'm liking that so far. Halation. Halation is the kind of red lines or red glow around highlights that you'll sometimes see in film. It happens a lot with Cinestill 800T, and we can simulate that with this software. Super cool. Click it on, and straight out of the gate, it's gonna be a little intense. It'll put it around, well, everything. And we can go into mask mode here and see exactly where it is applying the halation. So that's a bit much. That's adding a ton. So let's drag up the source limiter. See if we can bring it down to just the hot points of the image. A little bit, you can see a lot here on this like hot part of the wall here. It adds quite a bit of that glow. I think it looks great. I'm really enjoying halation. Halation is one of my favorite sections. Down to bloom, we can simulate that this was shot with a diffusion filter. I don't believe that I shot this with a diffusion filter, but if we turn this on, it'll just kind of add a little bit of glow, and it will, it'll pick out the highlights. It's a very good bloom tool. So we hit mask mode, we can see exactly where it's adding softness, and we can tweak everything. Bring that down just a bit. There, so we're still getting that kind of bloom effect, but it's not too intense. And then finally we have vignette, which is just your basic vignette tool. It will vignette your image. Here we have our before and after photo that we have created, and I think it looks really cool. And so to bring this back into Lightroom, all we will do is we will just hit OK, and it will immediately put this image back into Lightroom, and we can make any further tweaks that we want, and also export, crop, anything that we need. Next up, we have a photo that I shot on the Fujifilm GFX 50R, and I shot this with a film preset already, so it has a look already applied to this image, and it's a JPEG, not a RAW, so there's a little bit less that we can do with it, and my wife hates this photo. I think it's cool. She hates it. She thinks it's too blue. She thinks she looks blue. So we're gonna fix that and make my wife happy. So let's right click, edit in Dehancer Lightroom plugin. Go over to presets. We can click on presets, and there's different presets made by the Dehancer team, which is really cool. We can go through and like if I click this, that already looks really cool. So I think this is how I might do this one, because I really enjoy these presets sometimes. It's a really easy way to just click it and get a really good image right out the gate. I'm really liking this Kodak X-Tar with Endura paper. So I think we will mess around with that. That looks great. Over here, it's a little dark. It kind of underexposed the image. Already that's looking much better and not so blue. Film developer, contrast boost. I think honestly, we might need to go a little lower contrast. Gamma correction, bring that down a little bit. Seems to pop just a bit. Color boost, maybe we'll add like 2. 2 is good. Some of those highlights in the background are gonna be blown out. That's just kind of how it is. But if we bring the impact all the way up, it doesn't look that great. So we're just gonna leave it how it is. Print, we're just gonna leave that how it is. Color head, we can add a little bit of yellow or a little bit of blue. I might add a little bit of yellow, warm it up a little bit, magenta and green. I like that. Cyan and red. How does it look that way? How does it look that way? We'll add a little bit of red, a little bit of warmth into the shadows, a little bit of warmth into the midtones probably. Yeah, a little bit of warmth in the midtones, and the highlights we're gonna leave. I usually like to leave the highlights where they are apart from nighttime photos. Film grains already looks pretty good. Let's go down to about 40. That looks good. All right, film grain looks good. Halation, where is it applying halation? Quite a bit of halation actually, surprisingly. Really, it should only be back here on these like really hot points is where it should be applying halation to if we were shooting actual film. Like that looks pretty good. Bloom, I think I shot this with an actual diffusion filter. So I'll just turn it on and leave it. We'll see how that's doing. Yeah, it's adding just a tiny bit. And vignette, it applied a vignette. I like it with the vignette. And so here we have our before, which is very blue. She was right. The wife is always right. Happy wife, happy life. And click it, and we can see what we have done. So we're gonna hit OK, and it'll bring us back into Lightroom. And that looks really cool. There we go. That is the photos that we have edited in the Dehancer Lightroom plugin. This software is fantastic, but it is not perfect. And that leads me into the downsides with it. First of which being the price. This is a $200 plugin for Lightroom, which is very expensive, but also it's very cool. There's a lot of work that went into making this software, and it definitely shows with just the amount that you can customize. And for a working professional, it is absolutely worth that $200 price tag if this is a look that you are trying to go for your clients. But as somebody doing it for a hobby, it is quite high. And the final thing that kind of bugs me is that you cannot batch edit photos, which is really annoying. You have to be in Lightroom and then right click on the photo, go down to edit in Dehancer Lightroom plugin, and then go through all the edits, hit OK, go back into Lightroom, grab the next photo, go into Dehancer, go back to, it's a little bit of a clunky process, especially if you're doing this with a lot of photos. If you're editing like somebody's wedding and you're trying to get out 200, 300 photos to them for a wedding, that would take a long time. They would look fantastic, but that would take a really long time. So that's something to take note, where maybe you only do it for, if you have like 200 photos for a wedding, maybe you only do it for 20 or 30 of them. And then the rest of them you just edit normally in Lightroom. But if they could find some way that we could send them all there and just speed up the process of editing them in Dehancer, that would be fantastic. Anyway, what do you think of this software? Is it something that you enjoy? Is it something that you currently use or are interested in? I would love to hear about it down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing. It really does help this channel out. And I will see you in the next one.